It's been said a bard's life can often be a hard life, or hill and jail to rove and always move from town to town. And some folk have inquired if ever we grow tired of ranging all around the world and never settling down.
But one should be a little wary of remaining stationary, 'cause comfortable is lovely, but it's not the way we grow. When life starts to unravel, pick up your pack and travel. You'll find a strange serenity in places you don't know. Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-da-terry-o-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. You've got no map for showing which direction you are going.
But why start on a journey if you know where it will end?
And once you recognize,
to anticipate surprise, you'll relish every twist and turn that lies around the bend. Wriggle-dee-dum-da-doo-da-terry-o-dee-da-dee-da-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road.
the world has got its demons. There are many reasons why you'd find it harder to be brave than be afraid.
But every life could use some danger. Every friend was once a stranger. Ships are safe in harbor, but that's not why ships are made.
Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-da-terry-o-dee-da-dee. A fwit-da-dee-da-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. Adventures waiting further down the road.
Let's go!
Greetings, friends, and welcome to another edition of Gothic Horror Gaming. Today, this is the last of our interim shows going on. We hope to get back to some adventures starting next Wednesday. But tonight, You get not only me, but Handler Z and the baby bat, at least for the moment. She's fighting sleep. It's probably the terrors of the unknown. But she is here for the time being until she falls asleep. But before we get going, I do want to take a moment and thank all of our sponsors. First of all, 3D2U, our good friends over there, Jesse and Amy, making all sorts of wonderful gaming products. Check them out at 3d2u.org. Also, we do have our Destination D&D, where we're doing all sorts of games in all sorts of places, including England, destinationdnd.com. And coming up in November, we're doing Destination D&D in New Orleans with Ren Adventures as well. You can check us out down there from the 19th to the 23rd. Tour Old New Orleans, and then in the evening, listen to the screams of the damned, apparently. In the evenings, you will be able to game with us, and then it culminates in a trip to the Louisiana Renaissance Fair.
The damned really want to play with your chair.
Apparently, the damned really do want to play with my chair right there. She's very upset. But yes, lots of babbling going on. The spawn does appear. Jan Caro, indeed. Yes, dear. Daddy's going to read some spooky stuff now. Exactly. Before we get going, I also want to make a quick warning that we are going to be doing horror. This is a horror gaming show, but not right now. There's horror right there.
There's horror. No.
There's no, not the horror.
No, not
Daddy, not the horror. Yes, my child. The horror. We will ask Baby Bat to go into the other room when we start the stories. But there is subjects of violence, gore, things of common phobias, all that sort of stuff. Drug use will be in the stories tonight. What we're doing tonight is we are getting excerpts from the forthcoming book. We're going to take excerpts from Handler Z, Melissa Lee's upcoming book. We do, in fact, have another book in the works. For those of you who have visited us on Patreon, you know that on our Patreon page, you can find us at Quill and Quote. You actually have to type the whole thing in because it is considered rated R material, especially for the horror and the gore. But if you're a Patreon subscriber, we've been sending you stories. I narrate some of them. We're compiling them all together in a book. We have one previous book out that was out, that's almost 2 years now. Dare, a collection of short fiction and poetry. Is available in Kindle, in paperback from Amazon, or on Audible. I do the narration. So Handler Z has, Melissa Lee has sent me over some stories that I thought, while we're waiting for our players to reassemble next Wednesday, when we're going to play the game that you guys helped us write. But until next Wednesday, we thought this Wednesday that we would have we would read some of those stories, some of the ones that haven't actually been committed to the audiobook yet, but will be in the coming weeks. So we have some to start. And I'd like to start off with a quick little one. This one is called Safe Space. It's a very short, kind of almost like a flash fiction, but I figured we'd start there. And as we go this evening, if anyone has any questions, any comments, anything you want to ask us about gaming, the story, Renaissance fairs, whatever it may be, or about these stories, I will be switching out with Handler Z so she can answer your questions as well about her writing process and all of that. But to start off, let us start with the story called Safe Space. I thought this was a safe space. I love the carpets here. So soft under my face, tufted and plush. I can't trust the bedding, but the swirls of the rugs have become a home for me. I let the demons out here. But today I was unlucky. Some blitzed out Florida man has invaded my rented sanctum, expecting me to have cash. I tell him I'm a mushroom head. I've come here for peace and quality flooring. He doesn't believe me. I tell him to leave before my friends get here. I don't have any friends, but they really are coming. Once the psilocybin hits, they always show up. He doesn't believe me. A short moment before the drop occurs, I wonder if the adrenaline and the gun he's holding will process the drugs before they kick in. I wonder if this is how I die. Not lounging on the carpet as angels with torn wings crush my breath from me as I chase an even greater dragon. No, splayed on my knees with GSR on my forehead, an instant from rescue, my inner demons a second too late. But then, predictably, my jaw slackens as my pupils absorb as much as of the dim hotel bulb lights will provide. I can hear distant shouting as Florida Man aims the gun and cocks it, but my friends drip from my gaping mouth like acid slugs and melt the barrel, melt his hands, melt the stumps of his arms as he stumbles on the embracing carpet and adds new stains. I don't think he even gets the benefit of screaming. It's over so fast. After they've fed and he is gone, they crawl back in and melt on my tongue like an acid tab. I gaze at the Rorschach carpet stains and smile. So plush, so safe, so lovely. There we go. And that is Safe Space by Melissa Lee. A nice little flash fiction there. She wrote that one. She was inspired by the whole idea of going to a hotel room to do drugs, but what if the drugs let out some demons? So there's that. So cheers. That's going to be on our new book. We're waiting for some edits to come back and flesh it out. We will actually have our next book will be illustrated by Devin Borkowski. Some of you know who she is. We were hoping to get her on the stream tonight, but unfortunately she had a prior commitment. Yes, sir, David Percival, a Delta Green game would be ideal for that, where they're chasing down somebody who has that occurring in them and trying to stop them before something horrible happens again. Yes, we were hoping to get Devin on. She's going to do some illustrations for our book for each story, but unfortunately, she had a prior commitment, so could not be here. And for anyone who's curious, I am drinking a drink from the Lovecraft Cocktails book that I picked up at the New Jersey Renaissance Fair, actually. I've been going through some of them and trying out some of the beverages here. This one's called the Old Titus. They are quite amusing because it's written. Not only are they interesting drinks, but they are written in a very humorous format. For instance, Old Titus. That's no mule. Cherry and ginger in balance, strengthened with whiskey plus funeral home florals. It'll challenge you. It is the directions for mixing it together are: into a tall ice-filled glass, pour the bourbon. To this, add the Saint's elixir and then the gingered brew. Combine the others in a mixing glass and pour slowly into the main vessel. Let what lies beneath stir gently. So that is how they write all of these recipes. So I've been going through. If any of you were on the In Between last Thursday, I had a drink that was called The Final Syllable that was also from this book by Mike Slater. He's also the author of the Necronomicon. So if you want to check that out, it's a good book. I've been going through the cocktails. A lot of them are a little sweeter for my taste, so I've been modifying the recipes slightly, but they are pretty tasty. As always, if anyone has any questions about anything that we're doing, any of the stories that we read, about the games that we put together, I'm very excited to actually do this French Revolution one that you guys helped us write. So far, I have 3 of my 4 players already are set to go and are excited and have been working on characters. We have Shakespeare Approves. Some of you remember Mitch, Jade DeVere, who was also at the New Jersey Renaissance Fair, for those of you who attended that fair. Mitch has been on before on one of my games, actually. And then Paulo Garbanzo himself has said that he wants to join in. So the three of them, and I'm hoping to add a fourth, but I'm waiting to hear back from the fourth, so I don't want to say who it is until I'm sure that they can actually come. So cheers. We have a lot more stories, which I would love to get to for you. I have another, it's a little bit longer. It's not quite as short. I remember when Melissa wrote this one, we were both heavily caffeinated for a number of weeks at a time. This is before Baby Bat appeared, before we even knew about Baby Bat. But so she wrote a little story. This one is called 10 Cup Max. I have a term paper due tomorrow, 10 pages. You'd think I would have started it before now, but with all the stress of the breakup and my other classes and track practice, I just haven't had time to focus. I know exactly what I want to write. I just have to sit here and do it. I feel relatively well prepared, too. Mom got me some of that Death Wish coffee, you know, the really caffeinated kind. Not the stuff made from cat poo, but really hardcore nonetheless. I figure I can make a pot of coffee and just work until I'm finished. Should only take a few hours. And I thought maybe it would be fun to write about coffee in my breaks. You know, just to take my mind off the paper. Here it goes. Cup 1. Cup 1 apparently made me cry. Cup 1. I've done about a page and I'm already bored. The baby bat is upset. I will start again. I've done about a page and I'm already bored. Do Poe and Longfellow really go well together? I mean, they were contemporaries. They lost loved ones in traumatic events. Longfellow's wife caught fire. So sad. They both covered similar themes during their lifetimes. Yet their writing styles are so drastically different. I think Poe even reviewed something of Longfellow's at one point. Or maybe it was the other way around. I'm going to have to take 15 minutes and research it. Try to remember where I saw that info. Oh, the citations are going to be a nightmare. Pardon me for just a moment whilst I close the door. My apologies, viewers. Cup 2. Longfellow reviewed Poe. Oh, and it was a vicious one. Did not like Poe's writing at all. No wonder the dude drank laudanum all the time. I would too if my contemporaries thought my work was, quote, terrible, baseless, and vile. We can all look back on it now and see how brilliant Poe was, but that's the blessing of history. We're removed enough from it to analyze without prejudice. That and emo is such a thing. Oh, that is definitely going into the paper. Not the emo part, the sentence before that. Word for word. I'm so brilliant sometimes. The words just happen when I'm not looking. No clue where that comes from, but hell, I'll take what I can get. Cup 3. I'm on page 4 now, and I am hating Longfellow more and more. Dude's wife immolated, and he just gets over it? I mean, not really, but he didn't pine for her like Poe did for his own, admittedly teenage, gross, wife. Then again, Poe was kind of obsessive. I'm not sure whether Virginia really loved him or was too young to understand what was going on around her. Oh, and the way she died, slowly decaying internally for months, coughing up blood constantly. No wonder Poe's works are so dark. It's like when Pepper died. That poor dog was on her last legs for a year. She was so incontinent at the end, we had to leave her outside. We couldn't even keep up with washing her frequently enough to bring her in. I miss you, Pepper. Cup 4. I'm 4 hours in, and I'm almost certain this will take all night. I keep reheating the coffee. It's strong, very strong. My hands are starting to shake, but I'm on page 6 of the paper now. I'm so excited, like aggressively excited, about everything. Maybe I've been giving Longfellow a rough time. I mean, he did feel super sad about the wife thing for a while, but was just less obsessed than Poe. he got over it, and I don't know if Poe was all that healthy of a relationship before the tuberculosis and everything. Maybe I've been thinking about this the wrong way, but why do we know Poe's works better than Longfellow's? Shit, do I have to start over? Is my argument that Poe is a greater writer invalidated by what I just said? Oh no, I need more coffee for this. Cup 5. I've broken my 1 cup an hour rule. Things are coming quickly now. I'm up to 8 pages, and I didn't need to rewrite my thesis entirely. I took a walk around the neighborhood for some fresh air, and that seemed to clear my doubts a bit. Poe is definitely the better writer, or at least the more interesting. Longfellow was a product of his time, but pretty much only that. You can use him to really analyze the Romantic era, but you don't need his stuff in contemporary culture. Ugh, especially the Song of Hiawatha. A white dude writing about native culture as if he actually knew what he was talking about? Awful. Dude, you're English. Go the fuck away. Wait, was he English? I think so. Also, the word tertiary just looks wrong. I spelled it a few times and looked at it over and over again. I mean, it's right. It's 100% correct, but it just looks so odd sitting there on my paper. It was staring at me, daring me to fix it. Does the word have 2-letter T's? Are you sure it's spelled with the E first and then the A? I swear to God, I'm using it correctly. It just looks so very wrong, you know? I knew I had to get up from my desk when I was second-guessing my grasp of the English language, but I bet every English major has at least one moment like that in their writing career. Okay, this is going to sound super weird, but I thought I saw Pepper on my walk. I mean, I'm sure I didn't. She's been dead 3 years and was at my parents' house. But I could have sworn I saw a black and white Cocker Spaniel running around campus 10 minutes ago. I even tried to follow her, thinking maybe it was someone else's lost dog, or maybe some kind of spirit guide to lead me on a further existential crisis through the word tuberculosis. It wasn't Pepper. I mean, it wasn't anything. No deeper meaning than I'm thinking about my old dog. Nostalgia. I guess I just imagined it. It's starting to get dark out. Maybe I'm just tired. I'll take a break for a bit and watch some TV or something. Maybe doze for a minute. I'm probably just working too hard. Cup 6. I watched some forensic files just to rest my brain for a minute. The dude in the reenactment looked like Scott. I thought it was Scott at one point. He's an actor. It could happen. But the credits listed some Jake dude or something. Then Scott called. I just stared at my phone. It rang and rang, and I just couldn't pick it up. The campus therapist says it's better to cut ties entirely. She's seen a lot of girls go back to their toxic boyfriends and get hurt. She also says he doesn't really need me, and he'll be fine without me. He's probably just lonely, or gloating that he's got a new girlfriend. He used to do that all the time, tell me how easy it would be to replace me. Go ahead, Scott, replace me, and leave me the hell alone. Fuck. I heard barking just now. I'm in the campus housing, and no one is supposed to have a dog. I walked down the hall to the lounge to make sure no one snuck a dog through the back entrance or something. No dog. But I thought I saw Scott just outside the window, staring at me. I ran back down the hallway. Thank God I'm on the 3rd floor. If I see him outside my window again, I'll know I'm hallucinating. Or he's some kind of floaty vampire psycho. For now, it's just a consideration. Anyway, time to finish my paper. Cup 7. Okay, so the paper is done, and I've started to do a first pass for editing. It's going okay so far. I caught a few spelling mistakes and grammatical errors that I didn't see the first time. And then I got to this paragraph about Poe that didn't make any sense. It was something about his dead wife and she wasn't on fire. But then I thought about it, and maybe consumption is like being on fire for a long time. And I just couldn't keep going. I had to stop for a minute. I put on some music and tried to dance around to get out some of this nervous energy. My hands are shaking a lot now. So it's hard to keep editing without hitting the wrong key a bunch of times. I'm also concerned, since that paragraph was in there, that there may be other paragraphs that don't make sense at all. What if my entire paper is just trash? What if my research is one big joke and I score terribly on the exam and I fail out of school and I can't get my English degree and my rankings to get to the master's program? And I wish the barking would stop. I keep hearing it outside my room. I've checked twice and nothing was there. I think it's Pepper. She's keeping me safe from Scott. I looked out the window on the 3rd floor and thought I saw him outside again, just standing on the brick pathway below the complex. There are trees out there, and if even a few small branches get close enough to my window, what if he tries to climb up here? What if he tries to snatch me up and take me away? I think that's why Pepper is barking so much. She wants to keep me alert in case I hear him trying to open my window. Scott called 2 more times. I thought my brain was just making it up, but I really do have the missed call list. I put my phone on silent and hid it under my pillow. Even if he's dying, I don't want to speak to him. Even if I'm dying, I don't want to speak to him. Maybe I am dying, but I'll get this paper done first. I looked down in the courtyard one more time before I went back to my computer. No one is there. No one is in the tree. I shut the blinds and locked the window to be sure. I even turned off the light so you can't see I'm still awake in here. It'll just look like my computer hasn't gone into sleep mode yet, I think. At least the light being off helps with the colors. Oh, the colors in my room are so loud, and I never noticed that before today. Especially red. My bedspread is this cool Asian-inspired print, and it's reversible, and it's got the red side up, and I just can't look at it anymore. It's like it's yelling at me in Japanese. I had to flip it over. Now it's just whispering at me in bamboo. But the dark makes things easier. Cup 8. I thought I heard a scratching noise outside. I tried calling campus security, but my mouth was moving so fast I didn't understand what I was saying. Neither did the person on the other end, but they just assured me I was hysterical. Maybe I am. Have I become an 18th century woman? Will I be sent away to the country and climb the yellow wallpaper? Will I die of consumption? Will I immolate from a wayward candle by my window casement? When I finally calmed down enough to say I heard scratching outside my window on the 3rd floor, the dispatcher said she'd send a bike cop over to check it out, but it's probably just squirrels. She said she's gotten a lot of calls about squirrels trying to work their way into buildings since it's getting cold and school will be shut down for winter break soon. Squirrels know shit, man. I think she actually said that. That made me feel a little better. I went back to editing. I skimmed through the paragraph about fire very quickly. I think it only took a few seconds. I never read anything so fast in my life. I felt satisfied enough to ignore it. I'm just going to pretend that the offending paragraph doesn't exist. But I don't think Professor Charing will hold it against me. I mean, he's British and he's not stuck up or anything. I'm ignoring the barking too. I'm pretty sure none of that is real. I wish Pepper were here. Sometimes the shadows in the rooms move when I'm not looking. I see them dart around out of the corner of my eye, but I'm afraid to turn the light on. What if Scott is still outside trying to climb up the tree? What if I turn on my light and he can take that exact moment to ensure he knows where my room is? What if he already knows which one is my room? What if I turn on the light and see him attacking the bike cop who came over to check out the squirrels and had no idea there would actually be a guy here? And Scott probably has a brick from the pathway to smash my window in, but he could use it on the cop to knock him out before he climbs up to me. Pepper, where are you? Cup 9. I was almost ready to sleep, but I forgot I need to cite my sources. I knew this would take forever, but I'm getting so upset. I can't stop crying. All of these parenthetical citations are like scratches on my brain. Every bold or italicized thing is like a math problem I'm not prepared for. I hope I'm getting them right. I checked the rubric and I need 10 sources. 10 sources! I think I only have 9, but they were all real sources. They're not just Wikipedia, which I know I'll get in trouble for. Every comma is drawing blood, and there are so many commas. I don't know if I can find another source right now. I don't know if I can count to 10 accurately right now. I dozed off for a minute before I heard the scratching at the window. Oh, thank God Pepper woke me up. I almost thought I could feel her fur next to me. I could smell her stale, doggy smell and dirt. She smelled like the dirt in my backyard. I shuddered and cried a lot. The scratching on my windows continue. There's less barking now. I think even Pepper is tired of keeping watch. It's okay, girl. You've done enough. Cup 10. They're taking me to the hospital because I broke the window. But at least my paper's done. And there we are. That was 10 Cup by Melissa Lee. That's going to be in our up-and-coming book coming out. Where I hope to have an October 1st release date. We're doing all the editing there. I've read that story before. I've never read it out loud before. So that was a bit of a tongue twister, a little bit of a challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I'm going to take a brief little break here to have a beverage before I go on to another story. And I'm going to open it up to you guys if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about. Oh, you love that. Thank you, Rhubarb 14. Appreciate it. Yeah, that wife of mine, she can write. I'm very proud of her about that. And it sounds like the baby might be going to sleep. So if she actually passes out over there in the other room, I'm going to get Handler Z in here to talk to you guys about the stories. Oh, nope. She's still awake. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to trade off for a moment.
Yay.
And I'm going to take baby Bat with me.
Conveniently, she liked the lightsaber.
She likes the lightsaber. All right. I'm going to leave her for just a moment. Oh,
Yep.
The anxiety really showed up in your reading. Thank you. I was trying to be a little frenetic in the reading. But I'm going to take this frenetic child to the other room. I'm going to turn things over to Melissa Lee. And she can answer your questions about the two stories we just did, 10 Cup and Safe Space, and answer any other questions.
Hello. Thank you. Tonight, my drink is brought to you by McDonald's, because that's what I have. Thank you all so much for joining us, and it's always it's a challenge with kids. Usually I'm watching her while Tom is doing the stream, and that's probably what will happen next week. But this week we took the opportunity to read some of these newer stories. I think pretty much all of them have been featured on my Patreon before. So if you want to join us, quote unquote, yeah, Professor Z. Yep. And if anybody wants to join us tomorrow afternoon Eastern time, at 12 o'clock, I will be doing my Flash Phantasmagoria, which is real short. That's always fun. It's just creative, good times. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about the about 10 cups I'd be laid out on the floor. So that came to me not just from hanging out with Tom and like drinking a lot of coffee, because we did that, but when I was in college, I was at Temple University, and there was a specific dorm called Presser Hall. It's where the music and dance students usually stay, at least for freshman year. And there was a specific incident where I had a boyfriend who was very hippie, woo-woo kind of stuff. I don't know. He said, the first night you have a cold, you shouldn't take anything. You should just let it, like, drink a lot of fluids and just sit with it. And then the next day you can take stuff. Now, prior to this, when I was like 19, anytime I had any kind of illness, I would immediately start taking medicine. And that's just kind of the household I grew up in. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to impress this boy and I'm not going to take anything. And there was a night where I did not sleep at all, because I had a cold. It was just a cold, nothing serious, but I couldn't sleep. I tried everything I could think of, and I started to get delirious and delusional. And that's kind of where this story sort of sprung from. There is I don't even know if it's still there because I haven't been back in a while, but right behind Presser Hall, there is this quadrangle that is all brick, and it's brick floor. And then it builds up to like brick sides. And from where I was, now my room faced out the front of the building, but I remember there was exits that I could take that would take me to that brick patio. And that's kind of what I was thinking of when I was writing this, was that like, oh, if I was still there and I had a room that was back facing, I would have seen that. And yeah, whenever I get really tired, which I've experienced a lot being a first-time mom, I hallucinate noises. So I wanted to capture a bit of that in 10 Cup Max, as well as bringing in this idea of like hearing things that aren't there. Because that's pretty much the first thing that I think when I do that is, I hear things. If They have the limited edition triple jolt cold glue from 1991. Yeah. Very clever, Sir David. Yeah, when I was in college, I didn't drink that much coffee. I drank like Starbucks coffee, which, had espresso in it, but usually wasn't that serious. I didn't really start drinking coffee until I was well out of college. But yeah, I did at least pull one all-nighter in high school, and I was, delirious by the end of it, for sure. Not the same situation, but yeah, I was certainly panicked. And I remember this was a comparative paper. I was supposed to be, it was a big portion of my 11th grade English final. And I was supposed to compare Edgar Allan Poe and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And I chose those. I stayed up all night. And I think by the time it was finished, it was like 42 pages, including the citations. I think there were like 5 pages of citations, which still means that there were like 30 something pages of just me quotes and everything else. Oh, and I had to include whatever stories I was citing as well. So for like Longfellow, some of that's really long. So yeah, it was a tome by the time I turned it in. And that was intense. Yeah. And does anybody have any questions about the other story about safe space? I don't remember if I wrote that on the stream. I don't think I did. I think I did it sometime afterward, probably when I was driving home, probably listening to some, A Perfect Circle. Because they have like a say hello to the rugs topography. There's a song that has that involved in it. Yeah. Let me talk a little bit about the book briefly. Demons. Yes, I will get to that in a minute, Sir David. Good question. The book's working title is called Dread. I'm not quite sure what the thing after the ellipses would be. Subtitle, but yeah, Dread. And fun fact, I looked it up on Amazon, and there are only 320 searches for just the word dread. So if you're ever writing your own book, or you're putting your own product on Amazon, search the name of the product first. And the more specific you can be, the better. So Dread apparently does not show up much. So conveniently, if I put it on, if I can actually get it up correctly, my goal is the end of September with an official publishing date at October 1st. Then if you search the word Dread, I should be one of the first things that comes up, which is kind of cool. All right, a question about the story. I do wonder what made you think of demons coming out. I think that was I was driving home from Philadelphia for one reason or another, and I think I was listening to My Favorite Murder, which is an amazing podcast if you get a chance. And it's reflective glasses. It's just because my eyes have been having a lot of allergy issues, so I just don't want to put my contacts in. So I'm driving home from Philadelphia, and I'm listening to My Favorite Murder, and I think it was another thing about like either someone in Florida, or it might have been like somebody went missing from a hotel. Like there's actually a lot of those, even in Unsolved Mysteries. There's like a couple of like, how did they get missing from a hotel kind of situation. That's kind of what drew me to the idea. And the idea of someone saying, I need to let my demons out. Like when people talk about when they're very stressed out, or when they're doing some kind of substance, drinking, drugs, excessive caffeine, anything like that. They talk about like facing their demons or summoning their demons, that kind of thing. I wanted to take that literally. And this idea of where would be a safe place for someone who is literally haunted by demons and angels or something. Where could they go that they wouldn't really be at risk? Almost like if you were a werewolf, where could you hide that you wouldn't be at risk to other people? But this, in the case of you turning into something, it's your mind basically melts and turns into things. And I think too, the idea of succumbing to your own delusions and like letting that just take you, I find intriguing. Not romantic, not positive, certainly, but I certainly find it intriguing that you might have demons in you in such a way that you need to release them, and you need to find a safe, creative way of doing that without hurting most people. So, yeah. Ooh. Monroe Max, love these questions. Do you always try new ideas when you write, or do you ever think about sequels or prequels to previous works? Okay, so it depends. Like most answers. I have done a short series called Excelsior that I really, really loved. That all of my Patreon people have seen. And that was a ton of fun. That's about superhero strippers. Yeah, exactly. And that was, I still have so many different scenes in my mind that I wanted to create that I just stuck with it. I've thought about doing more off of that. I've thought about doing more. I did a really cool series, which is on Archive of Our Own, called Dark Lady. And that was based on Our Flag Means Death and some characters in that. And I had a full arc I wanted to cover. So there were like 7 or 8 chapters in it. When I'm thinking of a work, usually I'm conceiving of just one whole thing. Sometimes I see it in pieces, especially almost everything is attached to music. So if I'm listening to a song, if I'm listening to a sound, I will tend to attach specific songs to each piece, or the piece, like what I was talking about with A Perfect Circle, that they have a piece about making friends with a rug. And I will probably attach that to this story as recommended listening, that you can listen to it while you're reading the story. Or, just to kind of get a feel for things. But almost always, because I listen to music all the time, I am coming up with these ideas of stories, usually attached to music. Sometimes there are writing prompts, the random writing prompts. Rarely do I have anything, especially at this point in my life, that goes beyond like 20,000 words. I've had like 25,000 words pieces before, but I've never written a book that was chapter by chapter, start to finish. I really appreciate the people who do. But I've always been more interested personally in short fiction, and that medium is, I find it more interesting and rewarding. I will let you know that this book is going to have a bunch of trigger warnings in the beginning, because that's important. But it's also going to, I call it dread because it's dealing with a lot of my own fears that stemmed from various things. So it's that feeling you get of like facing your fear, and you aren't sure whether or not you will overcome it or succumb to it. So that there are a couple of stories here that really, really hit home for me, that like came from a very, very personal place. So yeah, I think I have like 15 different stories slated for it, and I have 5 or 6 different poems that I'm going to set aside as well. And the goal is to have Devin Borkowski draw something for every single story. Maybe something additional for the poems. I'm not sure yet. It might just be like a single image or something. Like, oh, here's a flower. Here's a ice pick. I don't know. Whatever. The goal in this is to kind of have like an adult version of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. I have all 3 of them from when they came out in the 90s. I have original copies of all 3 of them. They might be worth something, but they're real bent. But that really, really opened my mind to possibilities when I was a kid. Like, I would get that book from the library over and over and over and over again until my mom bought it for me. Yeah, I just adored those. So this is like an adult version of that. That's the goal. We'll see. We'll see if it works that way. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm gonna take a sip of my drink. Do. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. For the record, for a moment, because I know it is almost 10 o'clock. We are desperately trying to get the baby to go to sleep early, and it hasn't been working. She is almost 11 months old, and she has decided that she does not want to take her second nap. And if she does, then that means that she won't go to bed until 11. There's nothing we can do about it. We've tried a lot of different techniques. We've tried a lot of different things. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. It's all trial and error at this point. And I think most parents would tell you that. But just so anyone who is watching is aware, we weren't intentionally keeping our 11-month-old daughter up till 10 p.m. for fun. Like, she just doesn't sleep. Which makes sense. I wrote a story called 10 Cup Max about drinking an entire pot of coffee myself. Yes, that probably makes sense. Anyway, spoke to that. Trying to think if there's anything really exciting about this. I mean, some of the stories are really deeply personal, but I've really loved creating them. I'm really proud of everything that I've put together. A lot of them I've submitted to other magazines and whatnot, and just have never gotten picked up. Anyway, does anyone have any other questions? Any other things you'd want to talk about? Oh. I think it worked. Do you want your chair back? Okay. Then you let me talk, though. Okay. It worked.
Well, she's asleep for now. Have you answered Monroe Max's question?
Yes, I got that.
Is there specific music you listen to based on whether you write a story or a poem, compared to what you might listen to when you're for background noise for writing in general?
So anytime I'm on the stream, I try to use copyright-free music because I want to make sure that Nat 21 doesn't get in trouble. Otherwise, what I've tried to do in the past is listen to like a full album of something. Like, I'll put on, I have a whole collection of stuff that when I put on the Downward Spiral, it's very depressing, so I've never released much of it. But I'll put on like a whole album, or I'll find a song that I'm really into, or a mix. I'll make a playlist of stuff. But it can be really anything. Poems usually come to me so fast that I'm not listening to something while I'm writing it. The genres I tend to listen to are either very, very pop or like rock. Like I am finishing up a piece that I have not completed yet about, it's like a retelling of King Arthur and the encounter with the Green Knight, and I'm writing it to Slipknot. So think of that what you will. Sorry, I have phlegm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can take a stab at our next story if you guys would like.
Good word choice.
Well, this next one isn't.
It's not super bloody, but it does involve some stabbing. There's a dead goat.
Oh yeah, there is. So I'm going to do for you now another original by Melissa Lee called One Night Only. This one's a bit lengthy.
Yes.
So I might have to take a brief break in the middle just to wet my whistle. So I'm apologizing in advance. It's almost 4,000 words. So this one's going to be a little lengthy. Before I get to that, does anyone have any other questions or comments? Or
I think you guys are going to really like this one. I was really excited to put this together.
Yeah, you've been working on this for a while with the idea of it for a bit. And eventually you got there.
I wrote it and then I was like, there's no conflict in this. I think you actually pointed it out the first time that there's no conflict in this. This is just like happy. So I was like, okay, I need to draw in more of the internal, what I'm thinking of while this is happening. And why is this character describing this particular moment in time?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got it way, way better. Probably like a fourth edit in.
Well, we'll put it to you guys, and you can tell us what you think.
Can you give me my French fries?
Oh yes, your French fries. Here, yes, of course. All right, here we go. This little piece is called "One Night Only." I don't see that in the contract, he shouts with the righteous fervor only lawyers seem to summon. I rub my eyes a few times, partly in annoyance, partly to clear the sleep dust away. 7 a.m. meetings are not pleasant for necromancers. Page 5, Addendum 2A. I don't have to read it for you, do I? I pause momentarily as he warily eyes the section he's probably read a dozen times. It's ironclad. A last will and testament is consistently held up in court. These are just delaying tactics. He wasn't in his right mind when he made this agreement. You can't believe... He was, interrupts a cool voice from the end of the table. The deceased's best friend and widow of sorts. She was the subject's sole beneficiary, entitling her to speak on their behalf. She's been here through all these proceedings, which has been ridiculously admirable. I can't imagine what she must think about all of this blustering. We can't bring him back as a woman. It just wouldn't work, interjects the concert promoter. I'm grateful someone finally came out and said what we've been arguing with more half-hearted prose than you could shake a 1980s hair metal ballad at. Good. Mr. Carmichael, Mr. Jones, that is precisely what we will do if we bring back the subject at all. Their last... Should I say there? Yes, answers the lover bestie without hesitation. I think they would have liked that. Excellent. According to this document, their last wish was to be brought back, if such things were possible, as a female person. You've read it. I've read it. We've hashed it over 40 times just this morning, not including the countless emails we've sent back and forth. If this concert is to proceed, and by rights it should, since you've spent so very much money on advertising and ticket sales, then it must proceed according to the deceased's last wishes. They said they'd come back if they were permitted a female body. I have one on standby. Do you want it or not? The concert promoter and lawyer confer. I don't think it will take much longer here. Then I can get back to the business at hand. I slide my wheeled office chair over to check in with the next of kin. You doing all right, Mary? Yes, Sam, I'm good enough. Thanks for asking. No problem. I know this is a lot to go through. I'm grateful you've stuck it out. Most wouldn't. I know they would have wanted this. They always did. It just wasn't possible then, you know? And after they got sick, we knew there wasn't enough time for things like this. I just didn't believe it was possible. She sighs a bit, something between contentment and sorrow. I've heard that sound 100 times before from 100 lovers left behind. It never gets any less painful. Sam, do people really not stick around to see the process, I mean? I'm not surprised by her question, but it takes me a minute to formulate the correct response. Most of the time, I'd rather shield people from the truth. Necromancy is a gross, disgusting sort of business, but the result brings a lot of people joy. Seeing loved ones again, even in a different body, helps to bring closure to the living. I weigh that over her candor and honesty. I take a deep, stealing breath. Mary, it's a really terrible process. It's like being reborn in a truly physical sense. There's blood, entrails, and a good bit of death going into bringing somebody back, even for a day like we're doing. Most people, they just want the results. Does it does it hurt? Well, I hesitate. Does it hurt me? Absolutely. It literally takes a part of your soul every time you erase someone and transport them to a new host. That's the bargain you're making with science and magic as the necromancer. It's as if you are ripping part of your own flesh off and feeding it to a machine. No one likes that part. But does it hurt them? I don't know. Given how the hosts react when given a new soul and temporary restorative movement, I would think so. They shake and jitter all over the floor like newborn foals, trying to reactivate muscle memory in muscles they've never owned. But I've never seen it not be valuable for everyone involved. That's why I keep doing it. Yes, Mary, it hurts. It hurts everyone. But it's so worthwhile in the end. I truly believe that. It takes another hour of back and forth negotiating, but Carmichael and Jones agree to the contract as stated without further argument. This is what the deceased wanted, and this is what they'll get. Good. The ceremony takes an additional hour to set up. My collective has preset a lot already. There are gory details. They really are gory, after all. But suffice to say, goat is on the menu later tonight. We don't let anything go to waste here. I bring Mary into a waiting room to speak with the host family. They want this as much as we do. They are first-generation Indian immigrants from Mumbai. Their daughter was in a car accident months ago. Her final wish was to donate her body to science. They are rather excited by the science that has been selected. Mary is understandably uncertain. I wish these initial meetings were more comfortable. Not every family consents to them. The parastreses are special. They take some time to show Mary photos of their daughter from when she was growing up. She gasps when she realizes a picture from the late 2020s of the girl wearing a shirt with the deceased's face on it. Apparently, the daughter was really into the band and loved their music. She always wanted to be a singer, but never got the chance. Mary beams at them. The picture of the girl reminds me of Anna for a moment. I'm sure we grew up very differently than the parastreses, but my sister and I had moments like that. There's a picture of us together at a heavy metal concert in Luxor City. Annika was 5 years older than me and just beginning her necromancy career by then, but she consented to take me to my first concert. I remember that picture vividly. Her deep skin and black t-shirts, Anna with kohl around her eyes, looking every bit our ancient ancestry. Oh, how those temple priests would have laughed to see our Greek noses and curled Turkish hair, trying to look tough. We'd asked some random Sunni to take it with a vintage instant camera. He seemed so concerned about our health and safety as he shook the photo for it to develop. That night in the club was, and still is, the best night of my life. The music was so loud, it shook my rib cage. Anna slid me a drink from the bar, even though I was 15, and it was forbidden in our vocation. That's how I like to remember her, throwing her head back in laughter while holding a glass of frothy beer, black lipstick smeared on the rim, while men with hair longer than the length of my arm scream-sang about death and the afterlife. It was a private joke, and why we liked that music so much. I give the Perestrisis and Mary a brief tour of our facility. It's quiet and remote on purpose. The birds outside, the only sign of life for miles. We call it zombie outbreak safety. But really, it's just so the neighbors don't complain about the unusual things we do. When we had the facility in the suburbs, people asked way more questions. Several plush chairs are spaced out over the expansive waiting area. There's a balcony overlooking the lush New England forest, which comes with lush New England mosquitoes this time of year. Mr. Perestrisi goes outside to have a cigarette. There's also space to cook and to have food catered, depending on how people want to devote their nervous energy. Mrs. Perestrisi walks to the kitchen to prepare a traditional Indian dish. Her busy hands gather bowls and ingredients from the list she's provided. She's obviously excited. I frown a little. I remind her that the person coming out won't necessarily be the same as the daughter her family knew. But Mary cuts me off. Her lover adored an excellent spicy curry. It would be a great start. The ritual is rough, as usual. Calling a spirit back is never easy. This one has been gone since the early 1990s. You don't just call it back. You must reform it from pieces of the ether. Matter is neither created nor destroyed. Therefore, when you go, your matter, your essence, becomes part of the universe, the cosmos, and everything. To call back that matter into being, I have to sift through parts of the universe and find you, or at least the parts of your consciousness that still remember who you were. It can be a grueling task, both mentally and spiritually. Strong personalities work best. Who was the first? I don't think knowing it was James Brown will surprise you. Turns out that man really did have a deal with the devil. Well, he had a contract with a particular entity. The first time was all experiments and secrecy. It wasn't pretty, but it really did work. We learned a lot, including A. Find a new host body. No one wants to see a pile of bones doing the splits or hear what a corpse is trying to sing. Also, B. These spells have a very brief window of working before the corpse collapses. Finally, C. You've got one shot to bring someone back. It doesn't work a second time. 25 years of experimentation led us here to this room and my work. I am exceptional at what I do. What would have taken the first necromancers 3 days and 6 cows to accomplish, I can do in 2 hours with a single goat. Something about genetics, I'm told. Annika and I come from a long line of necromancers. It's what we were meant to do. Concentration is a vital part of the ritual. Once I remove my clothes and enter the chamber, everything I do is performed precisely with the utmost control. I'm barely aware of what my hands do when I'm speaking the incantations at this point. I don't even feel the decorated dagger cut into the goat's neck as it bleats and bleeds, as softly killed as a Hala Imam could teach. I imagine vaguely hearing the Gothic spire as my eyes glaze over and I tumble into darkness. I am told my sclera turns completely black as the blood that drips out of my nose and onto the host's body. I can only taste the strong iron draining from my sinuses and smell the vaguest hint of sulfur. I wonder what part of the universe I am pulling these souls back from. As I let my astral projection drift through the empty nothingness of whatever comes after, I ground myself with memories of youth. I remember being 4, my sister raising the rats our proud cat would kill in the alley behind our apartment in Luxor City. I remember being moved to a school in London when I was 17, and I accidentally grazed a dissected frog in front of my international school class. I remember how proud my mother was when we graduated from the underground necromancy school in Westminster. Anna was one of the first women of color in the field. I remember calling my mother the day Anna didn't wake up. In my hands is a relic from Mary. She stole a shirt the subject wore at one of their last concerts. It was hidden in the back of their closet when people came to deal with the estate. She's kept it in a sealed plastic bag ever since, but she'll take it out to hold it sometimes. It still smells like them, she says. I hope my nose blood isn't staining it. I can't accurately account for what I see in the dark. The stars, maybe. Voids and universes tumbling everywhere. Pinpoints of light with voices and smells and shapes. I'm shocked today that the spirit I seek stands out like a comet. It is a bright streak of fiery joy, every visible light spectrum and more. In a ritual that sometimes takes hours, I was under for less than 30 minutes before finding them. Then comes the sending and the coaxing and the convincing. This comet is free, without pain, part of the limitless cosmos. It does not necessarily want to come back. In my mind, I show them the shirt I'm holding, picturing it as precisely as it exists in reality. In my body, I bring the shirt up to my face and smell it, ground the comet in the fragrance of their life mixed with the light perfume Mary wears, representing her love. All it really takes is the unvoiced please for her. And the subject is rocketing toward me. The rest happens so very, very fast. I become a lightning rod between the entity and the host body. I channel the essence of the comet through myself and into the Peristresis's daughter. This is when the parts of your soul get stolen. It happens every time, but you can shield yourself from most of the chaos. I briefly think of Anna. The one aspect my sister wasn't good at was protecting herself. When it's all over, and I know the spirit has flown into the host body, I throw myself against the white tiles of the wall to break the connection between the outer world and the chamber. I also immediately void everything from my system. I know an observation team is on standby. Some necromancers who aren't great in this kind of work are more gifted in sensing if things have gone completely correctly or if a demon has entered the room. That I am still currently alone means I've done my job. After about 30 minutes of retching, shaking, and coming to terms with another piece of my soul gone, I begin some of the meticulous cleanup processes. I hose myself down with blessed water. Across the room, the now occupied host body is still thrashing around on the soft pleather table to which it's restrained. We learned that one over time as well. The body needs to stay on a soft surface that is also easy to clean. There's a lot of shit, quite literally, that happens during a necromancy ritual. Also, restrain the host until they remember how to live again. It takes time. Welcome to the world, friend. I recite this like a mantra until the body recovers. I say it in every language the spirit speaks, calmly and quietly, as I cover myself in a soft black robe and spray down the last of the bodily fluids from my feet. The newly formed spirit body human is shaking and twitching, as expected, and screaming and crying and terrified. Eventually, they turn a tear-stained brown face toward me. Is this real life? They whisper through parched mouth, so newly breathing. A chuckle, unbidden, slips out before I suppress it. Yes, my friend, this is real life. You are here, however briefly. They begin to weep. I reach a hand over, comfort them. I help clean some of the goat's blood off their newly animated body. I untie the straps and hand them a robe and some damp cloths to clean themselves with. They begin to take everything in for the first time. I don't put mirrors in the ritual room. Mirrors are invitations for dangerous spirits. They are also opportunities for people to succumb to madness, unprepared to accept their new humanity. We learned that nugget of wisdom from the Ozzy Osbourne experiment. Not a great time, that one. The newly awakened body accepts the robe and fiddles with putting it on as they cry. They touch their face, paying close attention to their teeth and eyelashes. It takes several minutes till they realize they've entirely switched gendered bodies. They reverently caress parts they've never owned before, flabbergasted. I have never heard such a joyous cry of freedom echo off the chamber walls. The whoop of delight causes my heart to skip. It is a tuneful, perfect note. The subject notices too. I watch their brown eyes widen as they attempt a few vocal warm-ups. Ingenious music pours forth from a never-trained throat brought under control of a master performer. I am awestruck for the first time in a decade of raising the dead. Now is the hardest part. I bring the dressed figure, the new entity in a female-presenting body, out to the world. The lawyers are there, but I couldn't care less what they think. The Peristresis and Mary are having a lovely meal together. They laugh and talk when I come in, well ahead of our new friend. The effect of seeing me is instantaneous. Everyone freezes. In some cases, mid-mouthful of naan bread. I don't even get to introduce our new entity before I'm interrupted. Divya! Shrieks Mrs. Peristresis. She bolts over and grasps the person around the waist, passing shaking hands over the body of her daughter. I'm impressed that the subject can take it. They seem perfectly at ease and also thrilled. Perhaps holding someone, even a stranger, is a big deal after 40 years of being particles of dust. Still, I put a hand on Mrs. Peristresis in an attempt to move her back. It's all right, Sam. I don't mind. That's when Mary stands up. The voice is perfectly accented English, a little whistly around the mouth, like speaking with a lisp. She runs over. I have never seen a living 80-year-old woman run so fast, and simply gawks in front of the subject with mouth agape. It's really me, Mary. It's really me. And they kiss. An 80-year-old woman full-on mouth kisses a 28-year-old femme-presenting non-binary person, and it is strangely romantic and heartbreaking all at once. Mrs. Peristresis stands limply aside until Mary pulls her in with the subject for a group hug. Everyone cries. It's beautiful to behold. We only have a few minutes before the promoter and the lawyers take over and get the subject to the concert hall. That time is taken up by a fast and in-depth conversation in what Mary tells me is Gujarati between the Peristresis and the subject about all manner of things. While I can't understand what they say, I get the gist. Everyone who comes back wants to know what has changed, The good ones honor the body they're in by engaging with the relatives of the host. This one, the best one, holds Mary's frail hand while bridging the gap between cultures. Eventually, the subject sighs, stands on confident legs they've never owned, and turns toward the waiting concert promoters. I'm ready to do what I came here to do. Let's rock, the subject shouts. The next few hours are a whirlwind of rehearsals, costumes, and preparations, and a lot of crying, which is typical but still feels unfamiliar to me on the faces of an 80-year-old rock gods with guitars worth more than my house. I'm there for the rehearsal, monitoring the time. When everything is finished, there will be maybe 3 hours left before the spell is concluded. Mary and the Parastresis have already agreed to stay together until the end. The subject has assured the Parastresis that a trust fund will cover all funeral costs for their daughter's body. I'm in the dressing room with the subject a few minutes before the concert starts. It doesn't hurt, you know, they say suddenly. I blink, dumbfounded. It does to me. That's your part with the devil's bargain. The physical pain, the mental cost. For me, it's just saying goodbye all over again. I don't know how you do it, Sam. It's a living. It isn't, though. It's killing you. Your collective must realize that. I pondered this for a moment. I've always known what it took to raise the dead, to bring them back. I never knew what the dead knew. How can you tell? I've already been where you're going, mate. I can see the shroud and all around your shoulders already. They look at me with eyes ancient with knowledge that stare out from a shockingly young face. I sigh. This is how I make a difference. This is my gift. In the same way you use your voice, I use my skill. I make people whole again, however temporarily. You've given me so much more than that, Sam. You've given me something I could never give myself. They gesture freely at their breasts and hips. The freedom to be the me I always wanted. Always. Your name will be remembered in the stars. Anna certainly remembers. You've seen Anna? The subject scratches their chin, hands roaming to the contours of a perfect mustache that doesn't grow on this face. Inasmuch as you can see anyone out there, yes. Annika was an excellent necromancer, dear chum, and she is well cared for beyond the stars. You will be too. I start to cry. The subject really has that effect on people. To be remembered in the stars by the ether. That's what I really want. To die, going home to the nothing without fear. To Anna. Comfort in the grave. Well, don't get all weepy on me just yet. You've got some time left. They say with a nonchalance I swear only the dead possess. Now, let's see if those people out there remember me. I follow the subject out to the entrance of the stadium. Once the concert went live, 100,000 people packed Wembley in hours. Another billion are watching the simulcast around the globe. No one wants to miss this, even with the controversial changes the subject has undergone. I'm here to make sure nothing goes haywire, but I'm pretty confident in this one. Give 'em hell, I shout as they glide toward the stage. I'll give them heaven. That's a promise. The subject shows a broad smile with brilliant white teeth. They beckon to the band just behind. Come on, lads. The show must go on. And that is One Night Only. I'm sorry, I can't do a Freddie Mercury impersonation.
No, and you
So-
also
butchered a lot of things from an Indian, but I
Yeah,
don't-
from the name.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I said I pronounced the name wrong, I was like, well,
Well, I gotta
this
go with it now.
that's why I kept going with it.
Yeah, the Parasastries were my neighbors growing up,
Parasastries. Okay,
Parasastries,
Parasastries.
yes. And they really
Peristalsis was in my head when I was trying to read it,
right.
and that's why I kind of
that's why I was
blended
like, I'm not gonna,
into
I'm
that.
not gonna correct you. Like, why not?
Mhm.
But we get that in the recording later.
But this is the first time I've read it through out loud,
Yeah.
so. Oh, Monroe Max has a question. Have you ever built characters to work with your knowledge of specific voices the Glue Master does that you like? Does his reading ever result in edits that sound better when the story is read aloud?
Yeah. Ghost Story.
Ghost Story?
Ghost Story I wrote because I knew you knew Michelle.
Mm.
I had this idea of, I had just gotten married, and my friend Katie Bourbon had just gotten married. And then I came up with this sarcastic character, and that immediately made me think of Michelle from the Washing Well Witches.
Michelle Kepner. Yep.
Michelle Kepner. And I was like, okay, Tom's known Michelle Kepner since, I don't know, 92?
At 95.
95.
95.
Okay. A long ass time.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want this character to sound like Michelle Kepner.
She had a very, very, very specific cadence to her voice,
Mm-hmm.
a very sarcastic wit. So that was fun doing that. So there's that one. I want to say that you did the first one that's going to be on your the new book.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah. You mentioned when you did that, it wasn't necessarily that a voice that I regularly did, but you knew I could do the voice that you wanted for it.
It is a major tonal shift as the story goes on. It's a person who's kind of an amnesiac, and the more they learn, the more they change.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote that. It wasn't necessarily with your voice in mind initially, but the more I wrote it, the more I was like, oh no, he can handle this. He can do this one.
Yeah.
And that's one of my absolute favorites that I've ever written. There's a couple.
So there's, let me find it here. We have a list.
Oh, of all of them?
Of what we're working on.
Yes.
So if any of you have been on our Patreon, you might recognize some of these stories.
Yes.
We've got one called Dark Water that's
I'm working on.
You're working on this week.
Yep.
Ladybug.
Ladybug, I think I actually wrote on the stream.
On the Flash Phantasmagoria.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, will be back tomorrow.
Yes.
At noon. And One Night Only, which you just heard.
Yep.
Inca Mummy Girl, which I can't remember if I did that one. I think I did narrate that one already.
You may have narrated it, but it never made it into a collection before.
No. Footprints in the Sand, which is really good. I haven't narrated that one yet.
I wrote that for a writing contest for the Magnus Archives, and I did not win, but I'm really, really proud of how it came out.
If any of you are familiar with the Magnus Archives, we were on a huge kick. We listened to all of them. We have started to go through their new season of the Magnus Protocol. And they had a writing contest at one point. Was Ink and Mummy Girl based off the Delta Green game?
No, actually. Although that's a good idea.
Yeah, those were Aztec mummies, not Incan mummies.
Yes. So it's based on two separate things. One was a prompt that was on Reddit that was a person can sense things from history exhibits. And they encounter a mummy that is labeled as being 500 years old, but it's secretly 5,000 years old. I think that was the prompt. And then also there's this very famous mummy of a young Incan girl that was perfectly preserved up in the mountains in Peru. And she was the thing that I was thinking of while I was writing this, because I did my best to describe exactly what she looks like. And that's where that came from. Although I really do love the mummies that I came up with in the Delta Green game too. That was fun.
Yeah. So there's that, the Footprints in the Sand, 10 Cup Max, which you just heard. How We Pray.
That is, it is speculative fiction about the Salem witch trials.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I did read through that one.
Yeah, it's How with an E, because that's one of the
characters, one of the people's names in the witch trial. I did narrate that one for our Patreon, I think.
Okay.
I seem to recall that. Then there's Garuda,
That is a deeply personal story, and I really liked it.
Rabbit Rabbit,
That one's fun. Yeah.
Safe Space,
Which you just heard.
which you heard as well. 5-star Review, which is
That is one of my favorite things I've ever written.
and that's a tribute to a friend of ours
Yes, to
in
a
some
friend of-
ways.
Marcus Harris is
A jouster.
a jouster, and he's a friend of ours. And I had this idea that kind of stemmed from, this is real, a serial killer. No, he killed like 3 people, but he left a bunch of Amazon reviews about some of the stuff that he used, and that got used in the court case. It was like, these locks are really amazing, they're really hard to break out of. Like, I'm not kidding, that's real. And I was like, wait a minute, okay, this needs to be a story. And then I just came up with a very, very off the wall version of that.
Yeah, it's quite different. Did we ever get that to Mark?
I did. I sent it to him, and he was like, my armor doesn't make that kind of noise. I was like, damn it, fine.
Come on. Oh yeah, because you had to rewrite it then.
Yeah, I had to fix it.
You had to fix that part. I remember that now. There's a story, Shrike, which I wrote,
Yes.
based off of a bizarre dream I had. It's more sci-fi than horror, but there is still some elements of horror in it.
It's bloody as heck.
It's hyper violent, which my dreams are like that, which explains a lot, I guess. But yeah, it's sci-fi, violence, horror, kind of all mixed in together, based off of several influences that were in my mind all at the same time. So then there's Unemployed, which I think I did narrate that.
You
one.
might have. It's like a woman talking to a ghost of her lover about something. I think it's being a necromancer.
About her work.
Yeah.
Then there's I Don't Remember, that story that we mentioned.
Yep.
And then we wrote one. Oh, you wrote one for our friend Vince Conaway. He does a hammered dulcimer on the Renaissance Fair circuit. Some of you might know him. It's called Paganini.
Paganini. A Vince Conaway story.
A Vince Conaway story.
Yeah.
That one's a lot of fun. I like that one a lot.
And he shared that with his Patreon as well.
Oh, okay.
Which is really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was that I had the idea first, and then I approached Vince and I was like, "Hey, would you be cool
if I include you in
if I include you in this story?" And he was like, "Oh my god, yeah!" And then I gave him a copy of it later that he shared.
I don't know that one's so much horror as dark fantasy.
You could say dark fantasy, or just it's
ghosty.
It's odd.
It's ghost and deals with the supernatural.
It deals with the supernatural,
but it's not necessarily like terrifying supernatural.
No, it's not scary.
Yeah, it's a little sad.
Yeah,
but it's good. I like that one too.
Thanks.
Well, heck, I like them all.
Yay, I really do too.
And I'm not just saying that because you're my wife.
Oh, it's funny because I've been sending all of these to a friend of mine who's an editor, and as I've been going through them, at first I was like, "Oh, she's a real editor. Like, I don't know what she's going to think about a lot of this stuff." And her reactions so far have been like, "Wow, this stuff is great. I really, really like it." And I'm like, really? And Devin, I've also been sending everything to her.
I told them about that.
Yeah, to do the pictures, and she's been giving me some really cool insights to help adjust some of the pieces, because she has some really great insights into things. So yeah.
I know I mentioned last time, and I've just crossed my mind now. I mentioned about the H.P. Lovecraft's Dagon in the style of Dr. Seuss and all that, and how I would like to read that to you guys. I did take all of your advices, and I emailed Chaosium, which still has which, as far as I'm aware, have the rights to this, and to the other one, the Call of Cthulhu version. I'm still waiting to hear back. So until I'm sure legally that like I won't get in trouble if somebody stumbles across this on the YouTube, that I read through this book on air, just because it's copywritten material by someone named R.J. Ivanovich, and I don't want to screw anything up for the channel, so I'm going to hold off on reading that for the time being. These books actually were a gift from is this Matt? Yes,
I think it was
Matt Selly, who's been on the channel, actually got these for us. So
we're very much looking forward to reading them to her when she can sit still long enough to pay attention.
Do you have a story in particular that you really are looking forward to reading to her? Like, not necessarily like, hey, let's read The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which I read to her the other night. And of course it didn't.
She doesn't care.
She likes turning the pages.
Yeah.
But is there one you really are looking forward to?
The
like,
one that Ben and Joseph got for me that I've talked about when I was a kid, Talipo.
Oh, the Talipo. That's right over here, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, that when I was in, oh God, I think it was first grade, and we would go have library time every week. Around Halloween, the librarian, how do I remember her name? Miss Keim, Keim, Keim. She read this story to us, and I was obsessed. I was fascinated by this amazing story, and I wanted to, like, I didn't necessarily want to base a career off of it, but like, I really, really love it.
I'm just making sure I'm not hearing her in the other
No,
room.
I think that was my stomach.
Oh, that was your stomach growling? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a huge nerd, and I am looking forward to reading her The Hobbit.
Wow.
I didn't read The Hobbit until I was like in middle school.
I think I was in my 20s.
I was like, I want to say I was in like 7th or 8th grade when I read The Hobbit, somewhere around in there. And I just felt like, man, I wish I would have read this when I was even younger. Sir David Percival says, I would love to know how she reacts to Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, yeah.
That's certainly on the list to read to her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I grew up.
We can have a rumpus.
A wild rumpus.
A wild rumpus.
I grew up, my dad would read us The Black Stallion.
Mm-hmm. I read that on my own
there's a couple
in
of
grade school.
Stories in that series that Black Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I was a horse girl. In the 90s, you had to choose between being like a horse girl or like a Sweet Valley High girl. And I was definitely a horse girl. So we read lots of stories about horses and stuff. I really didn't get into like fantasy fiction until I was well out of high school.
I got into fantasy fairly early. I remember I was reading the original Dragonlance trilogy as it came out. Also, the original Sword of Shannara when it came out. Not the one that he's on like book 20 or something now, Terry Brooks is, but the original, his very first one, which unfortunately is almost a complete ripoff of Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's
Everybody got to start something.
It's shameful. But then the second one, that's the Sword of Shannara.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the this next one, which is the Elfstones of Shannara, then he kind of comes into his own on that one, and it creates his own universe, and that's really good. Sir David, I've not read the rest of the Shannara ones. Like I said, I read the original trilogy when it came out. And I don't think I've read any of the other Shannara books. I've read other Terry Brooks, Magic Kingdom for Sale, and that whole series. I read like 3 or 4 of those. I really enjoyed those too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of the first horror book, not just story, but book that I read.
All of the things I've ever read are collections of things.
Yeah.
I've actually, this is a confession, I've never read an entire book by Stephen King.
Okay.
I've read short stories by him. Short. They're always like 40 pages long, but I've read stories by him. I've never read like the It or Carrie or any of those. I loved the movies, but I've never read them.
I never read It. I read Carrie. That was one of the first ones. I don't know if that's the first horror book I ever read, but that was one of the first. Mm-hmm. Carrie and Jaws was very early.
Ooh.
I was very into marine biology, so just naturally gravitated toward that book. I read the novelization of Alien.
Oh, yeah, we have that downstairs.
Yes, we still do. My dad used to be a member of the science fiction and fantasy book club when I was in elementary and middle school. And that's where I first read Dune, because my dad actually got, they would send you, it was like a book of the month club. And they sent him, I remember God Emperor of Dune. And that's the first Dune book I read. And I'm like, who's this Duncan Idaho? Why does people making a big deal about it? What the heck is going on? And then I discovered it was like the fourth in the line of the series of books. And then I went back and found the others and read them.
I grew up in the heyday of Scholastic book fairs.
Oh, yeah, so did I.
So,
Well, I was at the beginning of Scholastic book.
I read a lot of Boxcar Children, to be honest with you, when I was a kid. But then I got into Goosebumps, like a lot of people do. Those were probably my first real horror stories, horror books, were all of the R.L. Stine Goosebumps. I would love, I don't know if she'll ever get into it, but I would love to have a full collection of all the R.L. Stine books.
I love that Sir David Percival is admitting to his crimes here on the stream. I read a Lovecraft collection in high school and then started reading King in elementary school.
Oh, yeah.
Used to steal mom's books when she was done with them. Yeah, I didn't read Lovecraft until, geez, it might have been in college or later till I discovered Lovecraft.
I think I read, maybe a story or two of Lovecraft in college, but I didn't really get into it until I hung out with you.
Yeah.
And then you were like, oh, you have to check this out. I think I borrowed your giant tome of Lovecraft and I read a good third of it.
I want to say that
I got stuck on the silver key. I couldn't do it.
I want to say that Tom Leighton introduced it to me in the 90s, in the mid 90s.
That makes a lot of sense.
Tom Leighton is the gentleman who did the illustration for our first book.
Yeah, for the front cover. Is it?
No, it's
down in the basement.
We moved it to get it. But yeah, so yeah, that was. Any of you guys want to chime in on what your first, like, either horror or science fiction or fantasy book was? I'm trying to remember what other ones there was a series, and I'm trying to remember what it was. And it starts off, and it seems like it's going to be a ripoff of Lord of the Rings, but it's not. And it's a bunch of these halfling, and they're all like, their entire thing is that they're all excellent archers.
Oh.
But they're like little halfling type guys. And they have to send a regiment off to war where these evil creatures are coming down out of the north and are going to overrun this castle and are helping defend this castle. And I'm trying to remember the name of the book, and it was an entire series. So you're like, oh, these like little halfling guys that are, and they're just like stone cold killers with a short bow. And like I remember like all the in between scenes, they're like, whenever they're talking to each other, when their battle's not going on, they're just making more arrows. Like that's in the background of every interaction that they have. While making arrows, they are talking about this or that or the other thing. So I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can't remember who wrote it. They were little paperbacks. I read that. Mm-hmm. I read Jonathan Stakely's Armor, which is his kind of fan fiction send off to Starship Troopers in a way.
Oh, okay.
Not the movie, but the book.
Yeah.
Because they're like powered armored suits. And then he went on to, and then I read his other book, Vampires, with a $ for the S. That was turned into a movie with James Woods. The movie's terrible. It was not good. It did not match up to the book at all. The book was great. One of our main character, who is one of the vampire, he basically has a business that goes down and clears out vampires. They are a real thing, and they are an infestation.
Yeah. And
so like he has a gunslinger that works with him, and the gunslinger just has bullets for his pistol that they've been blessed by the Pope. They have a cross carved into them. They're made out of silver, and they have a small little ampule of holy water in it, and also a little splinter of wood in the front. And the gunslinger doesn't know what part of those elements kills a vampire, but something does. And he doesn't feel like experimenting, so he just puts all of those elements into all of his bullets just to be sure, and it works. Obviously, he has a very limited supply of those bullets, like they do in the movie. One of their big things is they go down with basically a crossbow hooked up to a chain that's outside on a winch on the front of a truck, and they'll go in the daylight, break into a vampire's lair, hit them with the crossbow bolt that like harpoons them, and then winch them out into the sunlight to kill them. Because they're like, we're not going to try to do it this hard way. Just
It's effective, yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. They did get that part right in the book, in the movie from the book. So, well, guys, I guess we're going to call it a little early tonight.
That's okay.
That's okay. So next week, we're going to be back here, like I said, doing the French Revolution story that you guys did, help me write, and we've got for sure Paolo Garbanzo, Shakespeare Approves, and Mitch Ernst, which many of you know already. They'll be here for that game. So that'll last the next 3 or 4 weeks. And I already have the idea for the one after that. Totally unrelated, but it came to me today while I was driving around. I'm not going to say anything. So David Percival, if you would like to moderate next week, that would be lovely. If you are available and so inclined, that would be delightful. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you, sir. I just want to take a quick moment then to thank our sponsors. As per usual. First of all, we want to thank, I want to get the graphics actually up here. We're just hanging out with you guys. So it's like, oh yeah, right. I have to do a thing. We've got 3D2U, Jesse and Amy over there, 3D2U.org. Check them out.
And they are doing a Kickstarter or backer or something. They need enough people interested to get their product to come out. So 3D2U.org, check that out. They're doing a Kickstarter right now for some new stuff. Yeah.
And we also want to, of course, thank Destination D&D. Going to New Orleans this November. Hope to see you all there. Afterwards, we all end up at the Louisiana Renaissance Fair. But if you want to wait till next year for England, there's that too. Check out destinationdnd.com for that. Hey, tomorrow, Flash Phantasmagoria.
Yes, at 12 noon. Yeah. Last week I had to do it at 12:30 because I had some other stuff come up. But we are back to noon, which is great.
Hey, and of course, we've got our book that's out already. Dare, collection of short fiction. Along the same vein as what I was reading here tonight.
Yes.
And we'll have a new book coming out hopefully come October.
Yep.
And you can always find us on the Patreon at Quill and Quote. You actually have to type in the whole thing. Otherwise, it won't show up because it is technically considered adult material. So you have to type in that whole thing. Patreon.com/Quill and Quote. If you support us, we send you stories as we write them. Don't have to wait for a book to come out. And also the narration. We send you all of that as well. Yep. Guys, thank you so much for sticking around with us tonight to dealing with the baby bat, who is still asleep as far as we can tell.
We are not on. You have to put our faces back on.
Yes, we sure do. I'm gesturing to the screen and you guys are not
like,
there.
We're not. Thank you so much for supporting us. I was like, that's not on my face.
That's not even your face.
Nope.
It's been a rough couple of weeks with the baby.
Yes, it has.
Let's say that. Hey, don't forget also, yes, we have a Discord. You can go on the Discord. Check us out there. Not us, but Nat 21 Adventures.
Yeah. Actually, and all of the stories, or a lot of the stories that people have been sharing from Flash Phantasmagoria end up in our #Flash portion of Discord. So if you want to see what I've been creating or what some of the other awesome people have been creating, feel free to check it out there.
And then also the Patreon sites. You can be a Patreon of also Nat 21 Adventures. Just patreon.com/Nat21 Adventures, all one word. You can check it out right there. And I think that's about all I've got for tonight. I'm running out of juice.
That's okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're gonna get back to some actual spooky gameplay next week. Thanks for bearing with us. We had a lot of our players were unavailable.
Relocating from one show to the next.
A lot of fairs just ended and a lot are just starting up. So after this weekend, a lot of people will be in their new homes for the next several weeks, if not months. So then it'll make it a lot easier for our players to all join us. And I'll let you know the fourth one, hopefully, by next Monday. And we'll throw it on the Discord and in the Nat 21 Facebook page. So until then, guys, thank you, Sir David Percival. I know you do a lot of the mod stuff for us, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the cheese.
Yeah, and yes, and also Sally, you've been here so often. Thank you so much. Rhubarb, good to see you again. I don't know who all joined us because I stepped away. Monroe Max, you were here. It was good to see you. Victorian London Fog. I don't know if you stopped in tonight or not. I don't have Twitch up on the other computer. I'm worried about it slowing down my computer. I'm on the other screen, so I don't log into Twitch because I'm afraid it's going to slow me down. So I only see when people actually post comments. So for all of you who were here, didn't necessarily post any comments tonight, thank you so much. Before I forget to ask, how has the car seat been working?
Yeah, great. Thankfully, yeah. Thank you very much for getting that for us. It's been nice. Yeah.
I forgot. Thank you so much.
And she's in the 12-month close, so I have to pull out that outfit that you guys got for her as well. So I've got to bring that out.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe next time we have her on stream.
Yes.
We'll have the baby bat.
I know where it is too.
Yeah, she's not 12 months yet. She's 10 and a half, but she's
like 26 inches tall.
She's long.
She's very long.
She's a long baby. She's not a very big, bulky baby, but she's very long. She's very tall at the moment. The car seat has been working out great. We actually have 2 of them now.
Yes.
That way one stays in my car, one stays in her car.
Yeah,
so
I didn't realize that about bigger car seats is that like they just stay there after a while.
Yeah, you're just
you just leave the car seat and you
this is where it lives now.
Seat. Yeah.
There it goes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, when we had the infant car seat, you could have different bases. You could pop it out and put it in. But now she's big enough that just like, nope, that's where she lives. So, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening, and we will see you all next Wednesday. Get tuned in tomorrow at 12 if you want to do some writing with Handler Z here. So until then, thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.